we go. Check this thing out. This is my newest mandala. It's entitled Cube of Spheres in Nature's First Pattern. Cube of Spheres, right here. An illusion of a cube, huh? Of spheres. Yeah. On a two-dimensional surface. We live and breathe in a three-dimensional universe. And yet there's this two-dimensional universe that's also right inside everything else. And that's what this painting is about. It's about multi-dimensional nature of the universe. And it's touching all three of the first dimensions. The first dimension, the second dimension, and the third dimension. The first dimension is represented right here by this bindu in the center, this little red point. A little arc coming out. Just a reference to the radius. We live in the three-dimensional universe, of course. We have our being in the three-dimensional world, and yet there's a two-dimensional world, and a one-dimensional world, and a fourth-dimensional world. So this is a multi-dimensional universe we're living in, and it's really evident when you start getting into sacred geometry. It's so beautiful the way the whole thing plays in layers of dimensions. Really cool. Let's talk about the painting process itself, okay? This is a painting panel. It's hard, it has no give. Got a board underneath it, and it's actually wrapped with paper, believe it or not. It's wrapped with paper like this. It's all crumpled up and then carefully glued down on top of it and makes a pattern on the surface. And these painting panels, they actually look like this. So this is a redwood panel here, redwood painting panel. This part's redwood, the frame. And this part right here, this is sanded pine, very smooth, very beautiful surface. So this is the way I start, and then of course we take the paper and we crumple it on there and we glue it on, and then we get something like this. This is a new one I'm working on, and this is what it looks like with white paper glued down with a hot iron, and then the geometry struck on top of it. And that's the way, exactly the way this one looked before it was completed. Wrap stretched painting panel, in this case wrapped with paper, but it could have been wrapped with burlap or canvas or a bunch of different things. I'm thinking about denim. Anyway, there's a lot of possibilities, but this case, paper. Now I have to say something about the colors. The colors that I chose. The four colors that I chose for this thing are symbolic of the four elements. That's fire, earth, air, water, or another way to say it is fire, that's radiant energy, water, that's liquidity, earth is solidity, and air is the entire gaseous realm. So four colors. So this kind of terracotta color that comes in here, this orange red, that's symbolic of fire, and the blue is symbolic of air, the aqua, green is associated with water, and this ochre is I'm associating with earth. So it has all four elements represented there, and it's a very unusual color combination for me. So I created these four basic colors, and we started to make the painting as fast as I could, as loose as I could. So I can't actually tell you how many hours I put into this piece and how many hours I actually was looking at this piece. It took 2 months to do it. It definitely took 2 solid months to paint. And I spent hundreds of hours meditating on this piece, and what happens is I always get very deep into this meditative, open-eyed meditative kind of place, and that's where a lot of really interesting stuff happens. So let's get further into this multi-dimensional painting and the multi-dimensional universe. So where do you start? Well, you start at the beginning, of course, which is number 1, single point. So in mandala making, mandala is Sanskrit, means circle, and the center of that circle is called the bindu. And the bindu is a symbol of unity or wholeness, oneness, at the heart of the universe, the essence of the center, the true center, the big center. And that oneness, that single pointedness, that is expressed geometrically as a single point. And that's what the bindu is right there. So this little point right here in the middle of this painting, and this little red extension right there, is in reference to the radius, and the center and the radius, and then the arc going around the center. So that's the center of the painting, that's the symbol of oneness. But at the same time, I put multiple hundreds and hundreds of tiny little dots all over this painting, which you can see if you can get close enough to it. There must be close to 1,000 on this painting. And those are all symbolic of this unity idea, this oneness, the first dimension, which is everywhere and nowhere. It's single point beyond manifestation, like conceptual single pointedness, the actual geometric unity of the universe. And so we've got the first dimension represented here in the bindu and all these other points. And then we have this second dimensional aspect of the painting and of the universe, which is the two-dimensional level. And in the two-dimensional level we have things like the flower of life and Metatron's cube and glyph maker and all these interesting two-dimensional concepts, pi, phi, all the rest of it. That's all two-dimensional stuff. That's a real plane. That's a real plane in between unity, single-pointedness, and duality, this plane, this two-dimensional plane, which is a reality. And we can actually experience it. I spend, over the years, I can't tell you how many countless hours I've spent actually in two-dimensional thought, being there. And that's clearly evident in the flower of life and in nature's first pattern, which is this two-dimensional part. And then the two-dimensional part, of course, becomes the architecture or the blueprint for the three-dimensional plane. It's interesting how they grow out of one another. The single point starts with 1, it divides, becomes 2 points, radius and arc, spinning, motion, energy, light, two-dimensional plane, manifesting into the three-dimensional plane, and that's just exactly what's happening here in this painting. The two-dimensional pattern and architecture out of which three-dimensional spheres emerge, totally, completely, empirically connected to one another, all three layers. Incredibly beautiful. But this is really the cool part, all right? This is a cube of spheres, okay? This is a three-dimensional model which I had made. This is the cool part, okay? Now, think about this. We began our lives in our mother's womb as a single cell. A single little spherical cell. And in a little while, that cell, that little sphere, divided and became 2 cells, just touching one another. And then in a little while longer, those 2 cells divide again, 4 cells. And then in a little while longer, 8 cells. And when it gets to the level of 8 cells, it looks almost exactly like this. almost exactly like this. More organic, a little more crunched together, but nonetheless, it looks just like this cube of spheres. So, here's the deal. Every single one of us, at one time, looked like this. Huh? Just think about that. We are so connected to sacred geometry, we don't even know it. Sacred geometry is everywhere. It's the architecture of the universe. It's inside us. In fact, we actually look like this. And recent really interesting super macro or super micro photography has been able to do live imaging of this form in the mother's womb. They've been watching the single cell become two cells, and they've been watching the whole process. And it's amazing because this new photography is proving exactly what I'm saying. Amazing. Sacred geometry is so incredibly beautiful. Wow. Cube of spheres, nature's first pattern. Namaste, everybody. Namaste.